or anything like the rest of us, when you correct the papers, you'll want to go right back to the books and begin studying with a new spirit of concentration and dedication, I'm sure. Of course, that's the purpose of the quiz. This isn't about living the life. It's about the Baha'i calendar. Surprised? But it's directly on our subject. I think it will show us that although we have known and used the Baha'i calendar for years and years, most of us, we really remember very little about details. Just as we've been given guidance for nearly half a century, or over a century in some cases, on living the life, yet we've not put it into effect in our personal lives in the manner we should. Now, is this true about the calendar? Let's find out. Ready, good. Here's a quotation first from the beloved Guardian.
It is advisable to use both the Baha'i dates according to the Baha'i calendar and the usual Gregorian dates as well. The friends at present are free to do as they please.
Did you know that? Yes. How many of you regularly use both the Baha'i dates and the regular Western calendar dates in all your Baha'i correspondence? Where'd everybody go? All right. Put me right down there at the head of the list, yes. But we'll try to improve beginning tomorrow. Or as Dr. Jacari said at the school today. All right. I'll put myself down at the head of the list. So let's have a short quiz on the Baha'i calendar. That's something certainly we should all be familiar with. We consult it often for all of our activities. Question. How many feast days and holy days are there in November?
Answer. 5. The birth of Baha'u'llah, the passing of the Master, the Day of the Covenant, 3 holy days, and 2 19-day feasts.
Question. What is the Persian name of the 2 19-day feasts in November? That's easy.
Answer. Qadrat and Kol.
Question. Perhaps that was too difficult. It suddenly got very silent in here, I noticed. I couldn't hear the scratching of any pens. Now, although we certainly should be familiar with our own calendar, shouldn't we? Now, let's make it easy. Question. What is the English name for the Feast of Qadrat?
Answer. Power.
Question. What is the English name for the Feast of Kol?
Answer. Speech.
Question. Still too difficult? All right. Now, this is easy. We use this information every year, year in, year out. Question. On what day in November does the Feast of Power, Qadrat, fall?
Answer. November 4th.
Question. What day in November is the Feast of Kol? Speech.
Answer. November 23rd.
I know that because it's my wife's birthday, Feast of Speech. I'm always sure of that one. Question. No fair leaving the room to get a calendar or the new era. Because, you know, this is all from memory, from what we do every day, every month, every year, and it's a little shattering, isn't it, really? Haven't you found it so? Question.
Skip November?
Well, I know how you feel. How would you like to try for May?
How about an easier month?
Well, all right, I'll tell you what. You pick it. Shall we have a prayer for protection?
Yes.
How about March?
More than that.
March? All right, Nowruz, New Year's month. Question. How many feast days and holy days and special days are there in the month of March?
Answer. 3. New Year's Day, Nowruz, and 2 19-day feasts.
Everybody get that?
Yes.
But what about the other special days?
Answer. The final days of the intercalary days and the 19 days of the fast.
Now, question. What is the Persian name for the first of the 2 19-day feasts in March?
Answer. Allah.
Nobody raised their hand. Question. What is the English name for this feast day?
Answer. Loftiness.
Question. What is the Persian name of the second 19-day feast in March? Now, this is a name I'm sure that everyone will get. It's the first day of the first month of the new year. Who could miss that, I mean? Now, what is the Persian name?
Answer. Baha.
Question. What is the name of this feast day in English?
Answer. Splendor.
What if we said glory?
Well, all right. How many said glory?
I did.
All right, fine. Well, that's understandable. Baha, glory. But the calendar, if we look at it, says splendor. That is one of the meanings of Baha. Question. Who is sorry he came to this quiz? All right. Question. What is the Persian name for the feast of Nowruz?
Well, Nowruz.
Nowruz. Who's buried in Grant's tomb, right?
Yeah.
Question. Now that we're back on a winning streak, question.
Let's get March.
I think.
Are the 19-day feast on the 21st of March and the Nowruz feast one and the same feast?
Answer. No. In the words of the beloved Guardian, his secretary writing on his behalf, The Nowruz feast should be held on March 21st before sunset and has nothing to do with the 19-day feast. The 19-day feast is administrative in function, whereas the Nowruz is our new year, a feast of hospitality and rejoicing. Baha'i News, 236, October 1950.
Of course, all you had to say to be correct was no. But it's surprising how often these two feasts are put together.
Yes.
And, of course, they shouldn't be. Now, question. I'll give you the names of the 7 days of the week. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
I know these.
Yes, so far, anyway. Now, wait a minute. Now, you give me in reply first the Persian name for each day of the week and then the English name. Now, that's quite easy. Question. Saturday.
Answer, Jalal, glory.
Question. Sunday.
Answer, Jamal, beauty.
Question. Monday.
Answer, Kamal, perfection.
Question. Tuesday.
Answer, Fezal, grace.
Question. Wednesday.
Answer, Edal, justice.
Question. Thursday.
Answer, Estejlal, majesty.
Question. Friday.
Answer, Ezteklal, independence.
Question. Have you had enough?
Which way to the library?
I'm glad there's no Persians here for both of us. 2 points off for all the pronunciations, but at least you get the idea. Well, beloved friends, the questions weren't designed to make you miss. We should have known them, right?
But look at my calendar. It doesn't give those Persian names or the English names.
No, I see.
It just circles the days of the feast and the holy days.
Well, all right, here. Look at my credentials. They only say I'm a Baha'i. They don't say what's in the Will and Testament or in the Egon or the Promised Day has come. Those calendars are to help us remember the great feast days. But the real jewels are in the writings themselves and the details in the calendar itself. The sooner we know and use the Baha'i calendar, the sooner it will take its rightful place in the world. That's important. Our efforts as local assemblies under the loving guidance of our wonderful national assemblies to gain recognition of Baha'i holy days in our schools, universities, and places of work are of the utmost importance. They help establish the faith in the world. They bring it recognition, legal recognition. We should pursue these goals with the greatest diligence. We should be intimately familiar with the treasures that are hidden in our precious faith. All right. Now, by the way, what is the year, the month, and the day of the week tonight in both Persian and English?
Let's go back.
Yeah, I was just kidding. I suggest we get back to our subject, teaching and how important living the Baha'i life is in all teaching.
Good.
All right, fine, but I think the calendar helps us realize how we do have to study. Now, you ready? Would you like to have a few more real rockers on living the life?
Yes. Not just now. I'm still studying my Baha'i calendar.
All right, Caswell. All right, seriously, beloved friends, would you like to know just how vital and important to all of our teaching effort living the Baha'i life can be? I mean, statements from Baha'u'llah and the Master that will be hard for us to comprehend. They're so tremendous. And so great is the teaching force of living the life.
You've got me intrigued now.
All right, then. Let's take the beloved Master's words first. You know, he was distressed because the friends were not living the life of true Baha'is in America. They were quarreling and bickering. And so he wrote to one of the assemblies a powerful message way back in 1912 in a tablet to America.
Why this lack of harmony, the Master wrote. Verily, verily, I say unto you, were it not for this difference among you, the inhabitants of America in all these regions would have by now been attracted to the kingdom of God,
Imagine that.
and would have constituted themselves your helpers and your assisters. Is it meet that you should sacrifice this most glorious bounty for worthless imaginations?
Imagine that. Isn't that tremendous? If the spirit of unity and love in the inner life of the friends prevailed, all of the people of America would have been attracted to the kingdom of God by 1912, 54 years ago. Is this some small thing, then, this living the life? It's the greatest weapon in our armament as the army of Baha'u'llah. It releases a force that the entire world cannot resist, we're told. But that only spoke about America. How about the rest of the world? Listen, beloved friends, to these words of the blessed beauty Baha'u'llah, what we could have done if our inner life and our inner ears had listened to his sweet music and we had acted in accordance with his teachings.
We have admonished all the loved ones of God to take heed lest the hem of our sacred vesture be smirched with the mire of unlawful deeds, or be stained with the dust of reprehensible conduct. We have, moreover, exhorted them to fix their gaze upon whatsoever hath been revealed in our tablets.
Had their inner ears been attentive to the divine counsels which have shone forth from the dayspring of the pen of the All-Merciful, and hearkened unto his voice, most of the peoples of the earth would have by now been adorned with the ornament of his guidance.
Isn't that awe-inspiring? Not the Americans, but most of the people of the world, yes. Baha'u'llah says in the Gleanings, pages 240, 241. If our inner ears had listened and been attentive, if we had hearkened to his voice, most of the people of the world would by now be following his guidance by living their life. Beloved friends, can we honestly feel that we've been victorious in the light of these overpowering statements? Really? In those same pages, Baha'u'llah says that he has reserved for himself the hearts of men, and that the keys to unlock all of the hearts, all of them are the believers, his loved ones, who have detached themselves from the world and are living the life. So we begin to see the power and the strength and the unquestioned importance and the utmost immediate urgency of living the Baha'i life if we want to touch the hearts of men. Nothing is as important to the faith and to mankind and to us. You know, in the convention of 1916, Mr. Roy Wilhelm, who was named a hand of the cause by our beloved guardian, he said that Mr. Wilhelm was a saint. Mr. Wilhelm told the convention, he said this, Abdu'l-Baha said to me in New York in 1912 that if from the beginning we had lived up to the Baha'i principles in New York and had actually delivered the message actively to others, yes, if we had lived and proclaimed only one of the Baha'i principles, it would have made such a spiritual impression that by this time 1/2 of New York City would have become Baha'i. 1912, 53 years ago, 54 years ago. Now, obviously, tonight is the time to begin, the moment, right now. Because as soon as we improve, no matter how little, the faith improves and the world improves. That's the important thing.
Yeah. I'd like very much to know exactly what kind of a life it is that Baha'u'llah and the Master and the beloved guardian and our Supreme House of Justice are calling upon us to live.
Well, that's a good basic question.
And it needs a good basic answer.
Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't. We haven't. In the words of our beloved guardian, I recommend to all of you a careful, prayerful study of the Advent of Divine Justice. Yes. It is a loving spiritual textbook on this subject. But let's extract the essence.
The Advent of Divine Justice, page 25. Such a chaste and holy life, with its implications of modesty, purity, temperance, decency, and clean-mindedness, involves no less than the exercise of moderation in all that pertains to dress, language, amusements, and all artistic and literary avocations. It demands daily vigilance, and in the control of one's carnal desires and corrupt inclinations. It calls for the abandonment of a frivolous conduct with its excessive attachment to trivial and often misdirected pleasures.
It requires total abstinence from all alcoholic drinks, from opium, and similar habit-forming drugs. It condemns the prostitution of art and of literature, the practices of nudism and of companionate marriage, infidelity in marital relationships, and all manner of promiscuity, easy familiarity, and of sexual vices. It can tolerate no compromise with the theories and standards, the habits, and the excesses of a decadent age. Nay, rather, it seeks to demonstrate, through the dynamic force of its example, the pernicious character of such theories, the falsity of such standards, the hollowness of such claims, the perversity of such habits, and the sacrilegious character of such excesses.
That's the kind of life.
Quite a challenge, isn't it?
Yes, it is quite a challenge, but we should face it with enthusiasm and excitement, now that we know what joys and happiness it brings, not only to us, but to the world, to live the Baha'i life. Baha'u'llah has brought the supreme remedy, the only remedy for the ills of the world. If we do not learn to live the Baha'i life, we become part of the old world order around us, decayed, disillusioned, and hovering on the brink of destruction. Look at it.
I'd rather not.
I don't blame you.
In other words, it doesn't matter what people think, but only what Baha'u'llah thinks.
Well, I think a glance at the world around us should convince us of that. Mental hospitals filled to overflowing, so many cases they can't be handled. They send the people back untreated, alcoholism at an unprecedented peak, more tragic in its spread and greater in numbers than even mental illness. Thousands upon thousands of alcoholics roaming the streets, no help, no treatment, no room, no beds. The taking of habit-forming drugs has become almost epidemic in some areas and is on the increase. Juvenile delinquency, adult delinquency, murder, rape, arson, embezzlement, lying, cheating. The graph rises with frightening steepness. Crime is unprecedented, divorce rampant. In some states, nearly half the marriages end in divorce. Marriage ties lightly taken, easily broken. Lack of parental control, not the exception but the rule. Suicide, not a monthly or daily thing, but an hour-by-hour disaster in the world. Is this the civilization to which we should look to tell us whether the standards of Baha'u'llah are right or wrong, or too strict or too lofty? And, beloved friends, thank God on bended knee that you're a believer in Baha'u'llah, the unifier of men, the organizer of the planet, the divine physician for this sick and dying society about us.
It's true that you hear people, both youth and adults, say when they hear the Baha'i standards of personal life that these are too strict a discipline and not suited to the present day.
You will thank God for that, huh?
Yeah, I would say so.
Because they're reversing the entire current of the present-day standards. They are eminently suitable, but they are not popular. They don't go along with the crowd. Why? Because the crowd's going over the precipice. Let's let the beloved guardian's own words answer that question. Tony?
It must be remembered, however, that the maintenance of such a high standard of moral conduct is not to be associated or confused with any form of asceticism or of excessive and bigoted Puritanism. The standard inculcated by Baha'u'llah seeks under no circumstances to deny anyone the legitimate right and privilege to derive the fullest advantage and benefit from the manifold joys, beauties, and pleasures with which the world has been so plentifully enriched by an all-loving Creator.
Isn't that beautiful?
I see the remedy quite clearly. In other words, if the illness is immorality, the remedy is rectitude of conduct.
Right.
If the disease is graft, corruption, and debasement, the remedy is integrity, incorruption, and nobility.
Precisely. And there is no other remedy. A partial remedy gives only a partial healing. And the disease remains, and it'll grow again.
It means that if we want a golden society, we must be a golden people and not of lead.
Indeed.
It requires golden conduct inside and not something that is a sham. We must be different.
So much so, in fact, our beloved guardian writes, that our rectitude of conduct must be demonstrated even in the impartiality of every defender of the faith against its enemies. Imagine. And in his fair-mindedness in recognizing any merits that enemy may possess. Imagine. As well as in his honesty in discharging any obligation he may have toward that enemy. Imagine that.
Those are certainly qualities which are sadly missing in the present-day world.
And the effect of these Baha'i lives we lead are the spark that makes our entire machine work. Without Baha'is who live the life, all the rest of our efforts are meaningless. Baha'u'llah didn't come to the world to bring a worldwide teaching plan or to build temples and centers and summer schools and assemblies. Never. These are only the tools of his faith to make men better, to be greater channels of his love. Baha'u'llah came for one purpose only, to change the hearts of men, and through those changed hearts, to change the outer world around them. The Baha'is are the soul and the body of mankind. If the soul is not alive, vibrant and holy, then the body's dead. It's a useless corpse. Bury it. Forget it. We must never forget this, not for a moment. Hear what Shoghi Effendi says.
The friends must at all times bear in mind that they are, in a way, like soldiers under attack. The world is at present in an exceedingly dark spiritual condition. Hatred and prejudice of every sort are literally tearing it to pieces. We, on the other hand, are the custodians of the opposite forces of love, unity, of peace and integration, and we must be continually on our guard, whether as individuals or as an assembly or community, lest through us these destructive negative forces enter into our midst.
In other words, our beloved guardian concludes, we must be aware lest the darkness of society becomes reflected in our acts and attitudes, perhaps all unconsciously. Love for each other, the deep sense that we are an organism, the dawn breakers of a new world order, must constantly animate our Baha'i lives, and we must pray to be protected from the contamination of society.
Yes, indeed. In answer to a letter from an American Baha'i about the apparent need for more spiritually enlightened souls to set the example, our beloved guardian's secretary wrote on his behalf these words: "This has been for long the earnest prayer of Shoghi Effendi, but for some reason or other it just doesn't seem to be realized. It may be because we have failed to do our best in living the life and promoting the message to the best of our ability. We have first to create the material with which we have to work, and then hope to succeed." So you see, there can be little doubt in the face of all these wonderful words that we've heard that our lives as Baha'is are the basic material of all our success.
Well, I honestly don't think that the great majority of the believers think of teaching in that way.
No, I'm afraid not. But until we do, we can't succeed. That's quite clear.
I've just realized that living the life is the only ultimate measure of success.
Right. Arise to teach, supported by Baha'i life. Teach, live the life, and the world is ours. I didn't say that. The Master did, didn't he, Tony?
Yes, Bill. In these words, the cause of God will advance only through the effort of teaching, and the friends will achieve the victory through the holy fragrances. Where there are a number of souls to arise, opening their tongues and delivering the message with the utmost severance, sanctification and holiness, and power of attraction, the powers of the world would not withstand them, and the hosts of the earth would not prevent them from accomplishing their task.
If we see a man acting after this manner, the Master tells us, we can say he is a Baha'i. If such deeds do not appear in him, he is a Baha'i in name only. If we claim to be followers of the light, we must diffuse the light through our actions. The name will not be sufficient.
Bill, I think one of the most beautiful statements of the beloved Master is the one about changing the stony hearts of men into jewels.
Yes, Bob, would you share that one with us?
O ye believers of God, do ye not look upon the smallness of your numbers and the multitudes of the nations? One fruitful tree will be conducive to the life of society, whereas 1,000 forests of unproductive trees will offer no fruits. The plain is covered with pebbles, but precious stones are rare. One pearl is better than 1,000 wildernesses of sand, especially this pearl of great price.
And our true Baha'i lives are the pearls of great price. I'm sorry, Bob.
This pearl of great price is endowed with divine blessings. Ere long, thousands of other pearls will be born from it. When that pearl associates and becomes the intimate of the pebbles, they also all change into pearls.
That's very beautiful.
It is indeed. And now, just two more brief quotations from Shoghi Effendi on the vital importance of our personal lives in the success of teaching. Then we'll turn to the most moving words of all, those of Baha'u'llah. Our beloved guardian writes, "If we relax in our purpose, if we neglect the varied opportunities given us from time to time to live the Baha'i life and demonstrate it, we are not merely failing in what is our most vital and conspicuous obligation, but are thereby insensibly retarding the flow of those quickening energies which can alone ensure the vigorous and speedy development of God's struggling faith." And this final loving guidance from our beloved guardian.
As material affairs go from bad to worse in the world, the confidence, optimism, love, and hope of the believers will, by force of contrast, shine out as an ever brighter beacon, leading the people to the path of truth, the way laid down by God, which alone can guide them into the promise of the future. The characteristics of the Baha'is will be that which captures the attention of their citizens.
Just one more, Bill?
Yes, of course, Bob, with pleasure. For certainly there's no subject spoken of more forcefully or often in all of our writings. And how is it that we haven't seen it clearly before and arisen with courage and conviction to first change ourselves and then with that on-rushing help of God to change all men. What is it that the beloved guardian said you'd like to share with us, Bob?
When the Baha'is permit the dark forces of the world to enter into their own relationships within the faith, they gravely jeopardize its progress. It is the paramount duty of the believers, the local assemblies, the national assemblies, to foster harmony, understanding, and love amongst the friends. All should be ready and willing to set aside every personal sense of grievance, justified or unjustified, for the good of the cause, because people will never embrace it. People will never embrace it until they see in its community life mirrored what is so conspicuously lacking in the world: love and unity.
Question: does anyone doubt for a moment that the most important thing is to live the life?
Answer: Naru.
Yeah, which freely translated is no. Oh, it's wonderful. Yes. Well, that's
All right.
I'm deeply, deeply grateful for this study class. It certainly penetrates right to the heart of the reason why we became Baha'is.
Right.
As a matter of fact, to the very reason we were created by God in the first place.
And more important, I think even, we learn how to be happy in this unhappy world. For when a man is out of touch with God, he is living more in the animal world than the human world. But when he's in touch with God, he's serene and tranquil and at peace with himself, inwardly untroubled. What is it the Master says about this, Tony?
Abdu'l-Baha writes, "A material man lets himself be wearied and harassed by little things, but a spiritual man is always calm and serene under all circumstances."
Lovely.
All this is really the story of the personal search for the Holy Grail all over again, isn't it?
Yes.
And every human heart longs for such a miracle, to be such a person, to find such a treasure.
Yes, all of us. The Master also wrote, "No man can be happy without God, though he may not know why he is miserable." Well, beloved friends, the truth is, man wasn't created by Almighty God and placed on this earth just to let his animal nature dominate him. Man is a noble being, the highest creation of God. We were not destined to be drunkards, dope addicts, criminals, perverts, prejudiced haters of our fellow men, liars, cheats, and tyrants. And yet look at the condition of the world. It's the despair of its leaders, religious and secular alike. In the midst of the increasing darkness and degradation are thousands of souls, hungering for something better, longing for the sweet-smelling fragrances of holiness. Believe me, the Master said so, Baha'u'llah said so, the beloved guardian said so, and Baha'u'llah is their only hope. We are their only hope. Now either we'll arise and become these loved ones of Baha'u'llah, or we too shall be rolled up with the old, discarded, tottering, useless order of the past. Baha'u'llah himself writes, "A race of men incomparable in character shall be raised up, who with the feet of detachment will tread under all who are in heaven and on earth, and will cast the sleeve of holiness over all that hath been created from water and clay." Beloved friends, are we that race of men? Will we seize our chance before it's too late?
I sincerely hope that we are. The time has come, certainly, for us to make every effort.
We have to change. We're always wanting to change the world, and the sad truth is we'll have to change ourselves first.
But that's not a sad truth. That's a happy truth. You know, imagine the bounty we have. We have the chance. That's the bounty. We know what's wrong, and we have Baha'u'llah to help us. And imagine the hours and hours of consultation at local assembly level that can be devoted to creative planning when the assemblies no longer have a long agenda of personality troubles, marital difficulties, personal behavior problems, and so on. Think of the hours our national assemblies can devote to leadership and inspiration, to inspiring us to win every goal of the 9-year plan of our Supreme Universal House of Justice.
Bill, it looks as though we just have time enough for those words of Baha'u'llah which you promised us.
All right, Bob. Well, beloved friends, we sincerely hope that your study class, those of you who are listening, will continue, and that you'll share this tape recording with all the friends in your community and with the nearby groups and the isolated believers, and that every valiant warrior of Baha'u'llah's army will make a fresh, rededicated effort to change the one thing that is entirely under his own control, his own life, his precious life, upon which a sad, sick, and disillusioned humanity depends. May these words you're about to hear of the blessed beauty cheer us on our way and assure us of the victory, if only we will arise and make the effort.
Through the movement of our pen of glory, we have, at the bidding of the omnipotent ordainer, breathed a new life into every human frame, and instilled into every word a fresh potency. All created things proclaim the evidences of this worldwide regeneration.
Arise, O people, and by the power of God's might, resolve to gain the victory over your own selves, that haply the whole earth may be freed and sanctified.
O people of God, let your thoughts be fixed upon that which can rehabilitate the fortunes of mankind and sanctify the hearts and souls of men. This can best be achieved through pure and holy deeds, through a virtuous life and a goodly behavior. This verily is the commandment which this wronged one hath given you, and the first choice of his unrestrained will for every one of you.
How sad if any man were in this day to rest his heart on the transitory things of this world. Arise, and cling firmly to the cause of God. Resolve to adorn yourselves with the ornament of a goodly and praiseworthy character. Let your principal concern be to rescue the fallen from the slough of impending extinction, and help him embrace the ancient faith of God.
I swear by him who hath caused me to reveal whatever hath pleased him. Ye are better known to the inmates of the kingdom on high than ye are to your own selves. Think ye these words are vain and empty? Would that ye had the power to perceive the things your Lord, the all-merciful, doth see, things that attest the excellence of your rank, that bear witness to the greatness of your worth, that proclaim the sublimity of your station. God grant that your desires and unmortified passions may not hinder you from that which hath been ordained for you.
Yes, all that which ye potentially possess can, however, be manifested only as a result of your own volition.
There's the secret, isn't it? Only through our own volition. And friends, finally, this quotation from the Hidden Words, the book which was given to us to guide our personal lives toward God. Baha'u'llah says that it contains all of that which hath been sent down by the prophets of the past. We have taken the inner essence thereof, he tells us, and clothed it in the garment of brevity as a token of grace unto the righteous, that they may stand faithful unto the covenant of God, and may fulfill in their lives his trust. So you see, all that we need will be found within its precious covers. Baha'u'llah closes that book, as we close this appeal to you, with these challenging words.
I bear witness, O friends, that the favor is complete, the argument fulfilled, the proof manifest, and the evidence is established. Let it now be seen what your endeavors in the path of detachment will reveal. In this wise hath the divine favor been fully vouchsafed unto you. All praise to God, the Lord of all worlds.
So it's up to us, isn't it?
You have been our guest at a study class on the significance of living the life. It was conducted by Hand of the Cause William Sears, who was assisted by Anthony Lease, a member of the Auxiliary Board. This is Robert Quigley speaking for all our participants and hoping that your discussion will continue and that as a result, wonderful and immediate benefits will come to your Baha'i community as well as to every single individual believer enlisted under the banner of the Radiant Army of Baha'u'llah.
The second half of our study class begins, still about enrolling the masses. Let me tell you a little story about Africa. An old man, I remember, waited one day on a road in Africa up in the mountains. When the teachers arrived in their car, he stopped them and he said, I dreamed last night that a certain car full of people would come this morning, bringing me news of the new religion of God. Are you the people? Well, you tell me, was this man prepared? I mean, how long would he have to study, and how many books would he have to read before he was ready to accept Baha'u'llah? The Blessed Beauty picks out many souls before we ever get to them. They're prepared souls waiting for us, and in a flash they accept him. The beloved Master said of Lua Getzinger, Mother Teacher of the West, that Baha'u'llah had chosen her when she was still a child running barefoot through the fields near her home in Hume, New York. How long would we require her to study and be deepened before opening the doors of paradise to her? But Lua Getzinger was a brilliant woman, you might say. I mean, what about the simple souls, though the more primitive peoples or underprivileged ones, the uneducated ones? Can they enter as quickly and safely? Well, let's see. Let's get an infallible answer from our beloved guardian. He said, "How often," I'm quoting, "and the early history of the faith in the land of our birth offers many a striking testimony, how often have the lowliest adherents of the faith, unschooled and utterly inexperienced, and with no standing whatsoever, and in some cases devoid of intelligence, been capable of winning for their cause victories before which the most brilliant achievements of the learned, the wise, and the experienced have paled." End of quotation. That's something, isn't it? Abdu'l-Baha pointed out that Peter, a fisherman unlearned, had trouble keeping track of the days of the week and wrapped his food in 7 parcels, so when the Sabbath came he'd know it was there and observe it. Yet Peter was so filled with the love of Christ that he was raised to such a lofty station. And Shoghi Effendi points out, I'm quoting again now, if the Son of Man, Christ, was capable of infusing into apparently so crude and helpless an instrument such potency as to cause, in the words of Baha'u'llah, the mysteries of wisdom and utterance to flow out of his mouth, and to exalt him above the rest of his disciples, and render him fit to become his successor and the founder of his church, how much more can the Father, who is Baha'u'llah, empower the most puny and insignificant among his followers to achieve for the execution of his purpose such wonders as would dwarf the mightiest achievements of even the first apostle of Jesus Christ. Imagine, end of quotation, imagine that. Both of those quotes are from the Advent of Divine Justice, page 38. Throw wide the doors. There are jewels out there awaiting the call of the kingdom. Christ said the last shall be first. He meant it, if they have a pure heart and are enthusiastic and catch the spark of faith. Baha'u'llah says the same. And in the Egon, Baha'u'llah makes it clear that this is one of the proofs of the manifestation of God, that he exalts the illiterate faithful over the learned opposers. His words, that very fact, Baha'u'llah says, is one of the clouds that obscure the eyes of men. Well, let it obscure the eyes of those who are not Baha'is, but should it obscure the Baha'is' eyes so we don't do the work? Impossible. And if that weren't enough for us, the Blessed Beauty, Egon pages 210 to 11, makes it plain that the verses of God are for the common man, and he uses that exact term, common man, and assures us that learning is not necessary for them to grasp the truth. Listen. These are quotes. The understanding of his words, meaning the messenger of God, the understanding of his words and the comprehension of the utterances of the birds of heaven are in no wise dependent upon human learning. They depend solely upon purity of heart, chastity of soul, and freedom of spirit. End of quotation. Do we need to hear any more? Or are we ready to throw wide the doors and to shout and to move? In the very first tablet of the divine plan, the charter for all our teaching, for the spiritual conquest of the planet, the blueprint for reaching the masses, page 11, the beloved Master declares, "Blessed are the nameless and the traceless poor, for they are the leaders of mankind. Become angels of heaven," he tells us, "and travel and teach through all these regions. I declare by him beside whom there is no one, that each one of you shall become the Israfel of life, blowing the breath of life into the souls of others." End of quotation. Become angels of heaven. Reach the masses, Abdu'l-Baha says, and make them angels of heaven so they can blow the breath of life on the whole world. You don't find many of those angels of heaven around these days anywhere, do you? So we see why we have to reach the masses, so we can all become recreated, so we can become a different people, unlike the world around us. We must be different. Beloved guardian said, look at the world and do the opposite, and you're most likely to be right. Of course, my words, but his idea. That's why we have a completely different approach to morality. It's not just enough to accept Baha'u'llah. We must let him change our lives. We must work at it. Listen to what Abdu'l-Baha says. This is page 21 of the Advent of Divine Justice. The most vital duty in this day is to purify your characters, to correct your manners, and improve your conduct. The beloved of the merciful must show forth such character and conduct amongst his creatures that the fragrance of their holiness may be shed upon the whole world and may quicken the dead, inasmuch as the purpose of the manifestation of God and the dawning of the limitless lights of the invisible is to educate the souls of men and refine the character of every living man. End of quotation. Isn't that beautiful? That's what Baha'u'llah comes to do, and that's what we tell the new believers as we teach them. Ye must conduct yourselves in such a manner, Abdu'l-Baha says, that ye may stand out distinguished and brilliant as the sun among other souls. Should any one of you enter a city, he should become a center of attraction by reason of his sincerity, his faithfulness, his love, his honesty, his fidelity, his truthfulness, and his loving kindness towards all the peoples of the world, so that the people of that city may cry out and say, this man is unquestionably a Baha'i, for his manners, his behavior, his conduct, his morals, his nature, and his disposition reflect the attributes of the Baha'is. Not until ye attain this station can ye be said to have been faithful to the covenant and testament of God. End of quotation. Honesty, truthfulness, purity, chaste lives, all the things unpopular now are what we stand for, courageously and forthrightly. The decadent world thinks it has discovered a new morality and calls it that, but it isn't. It's a new immorality. It's a lowering of standards. It's lost its morality and exchanged the characteristics of the human for the characteristics of the animal. That's a pity and not much of a bargain. When it is night, Abdu'l-Baha says, it is time for the bats of darkness to fly. So let us be like eagles flying in the pure high air. This is the longing that we must plant in the heart of the masses around the world as we teach them. And that's why we can't ride our own hobby horses in the cause of God these days. There isn't time to be one-sided. We can't bend the teachings around to make them give more importance to our own particular interest, whether it be international language, mysticism, the occult, the race problem, whatever it might be. The only solution to all these problems is the establishment of the world order of Baha'u'llah, the faith of Baha'u'llah. For this alone will heal all these ills of mankind. We've been told that infallibly, nothing else. And we can't be sidetracked. We don't have the time for unbalance now and giving all of our efforts to one facet of the faith, while the multitudes are thirsting and hungering for the Word of God and are waiting for us. You know, Baha'u'llah didn't come so that a man or a woman could become a drunkard or a thief or a murderer or an arsonist or a rapist or a drug addict or a hater of his fellow man. These are all the absence of virtues. Baha'u'llah has come for the exact opposite qualities of integrity, moderation, love, purity, reliability, so that these things can come back into the lives of all men, and men can feel worthy and close to God once again and stand upright. And we are the ones who must arise and carry this healing, exciting message of love to all the peoples of the world in a hurry before they sink forever beneath the sea of their own abuses, corruption, lack of morality, and integrity. So we have to hurry. But isn't it wonderful that we have such a plan? Abdu'l-Baha even named the names and places for us to go. Imagine such a thing. The tablets of the divine plan are Charter for World Teaching, the call to all the peoples of the world. Named the continents by name, the countries by name, the islands, the states, the provinces, where the faith should be carried. In those tablets, Abdu'l-Baha calls us apostles of Baha'u'llah. You feel like an apostle of Baha'u'llah? He tells us how we become apostles. He says he hopes the whole earth will be stirred and shaken by our achievements. He himself longed to travel the earth, he said, even though on foot and in the utmost poverty, raising that battle cry, Ya Baha'il Abha, in cities, villages, mountains, deserts, oceans, his words. Will we do it on his behalf, as he asked us to? Let me quote a few more of his words. Let your exertions henceforth increase 1,000-fold, summon the people in these countries, capitals, islands, assemblies, and churches to enter the Abha kingdom. The scope of your exertions must needs be extended. The wider its range, the more striking will be the evidence of divine assistance. End of quotation. Have we increased our exertions 1,000-fold these days? Is that mass conversion or not? That he's talking about. And the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, makes it clear that our very spiritual life, our spiritual destiny, depends upon our fulfilling Abdu'l-Baha's words and carrying the faith of Baha'u'llah to every corner of the earth. Why are ye silent? Shout. Why are ye sitting? Move. Abdu'l-Baha's words. Yes, I'm sure you know by this time. What problems, what sorrows and sufferings, and what a great number of conflicting attitudes about mass conversion we would be able to avoid if only we would follow these divine infallible counsels from the beloved guardian, our universal house of justice, and as presented to us by those heroic generals of the 9-year plan, our national spiritual assemblies. And what's more, the work would never be slowed or halted. We would avoid going to the two extremes and would meet in that middle ground of loving unity and enthusiasm. And then we'd consult on how to do it and not on how not to do it. And perhaps then, and only then, the one hope for the peoples of the world would not be withheld from them by us. We, the only ones who hold in the palm of our hand the destiny of mankind, we hold there the life-saving medicine for the ills of the world for which they are dying and weeping in despair all around us while we debate the issues. Do you think the world is going to get better if we don't do the things we're told to do? Do you? Do you think we're too small in numbers and insignificant to make any historical change, so what does it really matter? Would you like to hear some infallible words on the subject of you and me and the world? Listen, Shoghi Effendi, grandson of the Master, great-grandson of the Promise of all ages, descendant of the Bab, he's talking to us. This is his secretary writing on his behalf, and he tells us, the world, with all the various calamities that have befallen it, will be completely ravaged and its civilization demolished if the Baha'is do not come to its help and imbue it with the spirit that Baha'u'llah has brought into the world. End of quotation. Is that ambiguous? Is there anything about that that's not clear? Our civilization will be demolished. It will be completely ravaged if we, the Baha'is, do not come to its aid. We, the Baha'is, the handful that we have now, or maybe the masses of believers that we can bring into the faith if we arise and serve, the multitudes who could assist us. You tell me which way it would work best. Let me go on. Same quotation from the same infallible source, Shoghi Effendi. Listen. The economic factions, political parties, national hatreds, racial prejudices, and religious antagonisms will continue to bring about devastating wars. Not troubles or difficulties, devastating wars. Those are my words. Sorry. Back to the quotation. Devastating wars until the spirit of the cause permeates the heart of man and its universal teachings pull down the existing barriers. Let me interrupt there for a moment. Permeates the heart of man. Does that sound like a few thousand in each country, or does it sound like the masses? And then the beloved guardian tells us, quote, let us be reminded of our duty by the misery we see around us, and arise for the prosecution of our noble duty. End of quotation. Arise for the prosecution of our noble duty. Apparently we didn't set the world on fire, even though we had the only remedy for the ills of man, and only our faith could rescue the world and the nations. Over 20 years later, the beloved guardian called to us again. During that 20 years, we averaged far less than 500 new Baha'is each year in a land approaching 200 million people, and the other Baha'i nations of the world did no better, or even less. We, the most privileged people in the world, with an infallible remedy that took only the will and spirit to arise if we wanted the victory, did not achieve it in those days. It was even then within our reach, the beloved guardian said. There is no time to lose, he wrote to us 20 years later. I'm quoting now. There is no time to lose. The hour is ripe for the proclamation without fear and without reserve and without hesitation and on a scale never as yet undertaken, of the one message that can alone extricate humanity from the morass into which it is steadily sinking, and from which they who claim to be the followers of the most great name can and will eventually rescue it. Will we, today's Baha'is, be those followers who win that victory for Baha'u'llah? Or will it be more worthy and willing instruments raised up on the ashes of our indifference? The possibility indicated by the beloved guardian and also our universal house of justice. Now you can understand why those heroic generals of the 9-year plan, your National Spiritual Assembly, is courageously blowing on these fresh sparks of teaching that have been ignited. They want them to burst into flame. If the Master told us what would happen, before the temple was ever built, he told us. He said a temple will be built in America. And then, in his own words, I'm quoting now, the cries of supplication and invocation will be raised to the highest kingdom therefrom. And verily, the people will enter into the religion of God by troops with great enthusiasm and attraction. End of quotation. So let's not kill that enthusiasm now that it's started. Let's not rebuff these sincere hearts, nor let the ardor, thrill, and excitement that has taken possession of these souls of the new believers be dampened. Deepen them, yes, but don't close the doors of expansion while we do it. Doors wide, march on. Unsuspected, undreamed of victories are within our grasp. By troops, your National Spiritual Assembly is constantly urging you forward these days, in every part of America, in the United States, in Canada, in Alaska. Why are ye silent? Shout! Why are ye sitting? Move! I remember a patient in a doctor's office talking to a Baha'i dentist who had shared with him this wonderful news we're talking about, and the coming of Baha'u'llah, the promised one of all religions. Do you really believe that? He asked the dentist. Absolutely. Then why in the name of God are you standing here filling my teeth? Get out there in the world where the world is dying and where the trouble is. You'll be happy to know that that dentist did go out. He pioneered, and he filled both teeth and souls with pure gold. One material and one spiritual. You know, I'm sure that many of you are saying, boy, this is a long study class. I'm running out of steam. It is, and I'm sorry. We should have a whole week together at a summer school or a winter school. But you know, I never know when I'll see any of you again. This may be my last chance to talk to you this way. And besides, this study class wasn't designed to entertain you. It was meant to stir you up. Many an operation on the table in the hospital operating room takes much longer. But if it cuts out the growth of indifference or the lump of laziness or removes those obstacles that have been holding each of us back from unequal spiritual activity and sacrifice on an unprecedented scale, then it will be well worth our time and our discomfort. The only anesthetic I can administer is the breath of the Holy Spirit. I had hoped that that would see you through right to the end. Would you like another infallible whiff? Okay. Baha'i Administration, pages 42, 43. Let us be on our guard, so the Master continually reminds us, from his station on high, lest too much concern in that which is secondary in importance, and too long a preoccupation with the details of our affairs and activities, make us neglectful of the most essential, the most urgent of all our obligations, namely to bury our cares and teach the cause, delivering far and wide this message of salvation to a sorely stricken world. To his valiant combatants on earth, who at times may feel disheartened, our ever-victorious commander, Abdul-Baha, gives us the following assurance. O ye servants of the sacred threshold, the triumphant hosts of the celestial concourse, arrayed and marshaled in the realm above, stand ready and expectant to assure victory to that valiant horseman who with confidence spurs on his charger into the arena of service. With such inspiring words as these, are we to remain any longer unmoved and inactive? His trumpet call resounds on every side and summons us to service. Are we to tarry and hesitate? His voice is calling aloud from every land. Let us march on, unfettered and unafraid, and fulfill our glorious destiny. End of quotation. Feel better? So we have everything we need at hand in each of our lives. We don't have to be told anything more. All we have to do is get up and do what we've already been told. So if we are not arising in this day to teach the masses, or to support the work of teaching the multitudes, financially, or in some urgent, vital way, whatever it is, then it's because we just don't believe in it. We don't care, or we don't understand. But I feel sure after this fireside study class, there's no reason why we should not understand. You don't have to be glamorous or have worldly advantage or wealth or fame or learning. Good if you have them, but you don't need them. Not if, and this is a matter of dedication and sincerity, if you allow yourself to be fed by that celestial strength and those hidden springs, then nothing can prevent you from winning the greatest victories beyond the wildest dreams of your own imagination. And of course, if you are famous or wealthy or glamorous, and you still offer that same sacrifice and consecration to the cause of Baha'u'llah and the cause of God, then you will outstrip the very stars in your glory, and the contribution you can make to the future happiness and security and welfare of mankind will live in history. Now, is that a goal in life worth striving for or not? I mean, how lucky can we get? Shoghi Effendi tells us that the cause of God won out over its enemies and opposers because, let me quote his own exact words, because its animating breath had been quickened by that spirit which is born of God, and on which all success, wherever and however it be sought, must ultimately depend. End of quotation. That spirit is here with us today, surrounding us, looking for instruments. When my wife Marguerite Sears was on pilgrimage, the beloved guardian told her that this power of the Supreme Concourse had been accumulating because it was so little used, surrounding us everywhere, looking for instruments, and we haven't been calling upon it. Is this the day? I mean, where are the pioneers? Where are the settlers, the traveling teachers, the contributors, the heroes, the heroines, who are ready to don the armor of Baha'u'llah's love and march out from here and enroll the masses? Are they here today? Stop me. Tell me, yes, they're here today, and they're planning to go out as quickly as possible. Well, it was time to stop for another respite anyway. We're now about midway through the second half of our study class, so let's take another 10-minute break to let it all settle down inside into our inner being. Stretch, walk around, make it a family party, and then we'll meet back here in 10 minutes. And while you're resting, you members of the radiant army of Baha'u'llah, think over these words of the beloved guardian. His secretary is writing on his behalf. And then discuss among yourselves, with each other, whether the world is going to get better or worse. I'm quoting now. The friends must at all times bear in mind that they are, in a way, like soldiers under attack. The world is at present in an exceedingly dark spiritual condition. Hatred and prejudice of every sort are literally tearing it to pieces. We, on the other hand, are the custodians of the opposite forces, of love, of unity, of peace and integration. And we must be continually on our guard, whether as individuals or as an assembly or community, lest through us these destructive negative forces enter our midst. In other words, we must be aware lest the darkness of society becomes reflected in our acts and attitudes, perhaps all unconsciously. Love for each other, the deep sense that we are an organism, the dawnbreakers of a new world order, must constantly animate our Baha'i lives, and we must pray to be protected from the contamination of society which is so diseased with prejudice. End of quotation. See you in about 10 minutes. Hey, that was fun, wasn't it? Well, welcome back. Before going on, I want to speak about deepening just a little more, because there's still another aspect of deepening that sometimes we forget. Deepening. What a lot of different pictures the word deepening brings to different minds. In fact, we have found unhappily in some parts of the world that there's even a resistance to deepening, as though deepening implied that the one who was to receive the deepening was suffering from some shortcoming or weakness that had to be remedied. Not at all. I've accepted Baha'u'llah. I'm ready to teach. I love him. What more do I need? Why must I be deepened? I couldn't be more on fire or more in love with the faith. I don't want to waste my time with deepening, not when the world out there is dying to hear the word of Baha'u'llah. I want to proclaim it. I want to teach the masses. That sounds reasonable, doesn't it? I mean, with the world hanging on a precipice, this is not the time for deepening. That can come later, when we've got the masses into the faith and spent our time proclaiming and teaching the multitudes, right? Wrong. I mean, we, the teachers, can rescue an individual soul, but it is our institutions, the administrative order of our faith, that rescues humanity. New believers make new assemblies. New local assemblies make more new national assemblies. More new national assemblies bring more temples, with the auxiliary institutions around them, the symbol of hope amidst the gloom of a despairing world. Beloved guardians' words, local assemblies are local channels for the water of life. National assemblies are national channels, channels for nations, countries. Shoghi Effendi's thoughts, not mine. Abdul-Baha told us that the progress of mankind at all times and under all conditions, hear that? The progress of mankind at all times and under all conditions are dependent upon these assemblies. Imagine that, and those are his words almost exactly. Just as Baha'u'llah commanded us to teach the multitudes and the masses, Baha'u'llah also commanded us in his most holy book, the Atlas, to raise up local assemblies, local houses of justice. That's why we have locality goals and assembly goals in our plans. The masses entering the faith are the foundation for these world healing bodies. Not individual healing bodies, world healing bodies. They are not the final stage of the work, these new believers. They are the beginning stage. Their destiny is to be bricks in the mighty houses of God that are being raised up all over the world at Baha'u'llah's divine infallible command. Baha'u'llah says in his own words about these assembly meetings, and I'm quoting him now, at this meeting they, meaning the members, they should feel as if they were entering the presence of God, inasmuch as this binding command hath flowed from the pen of him who is the Ancient of Days. The glances of God are directed toward this assembly. End of quotation. Isn't it wonderful? That means whenever we raise up a local spiritual assembly, a divine power comes down when they meet in consultation in love and unity. The only place in the world that we can get that love all over the world, and that's what we're raising up, this kingdom of God on earth. Deepening means to learn more and more about this wonderful cause, so we can give it to others in its pure form, in the words of the writings. It's the creative word and recreates the heart. We don't. The words of Baha'u'llah do, the words of the writings. If we were to enter the university, would we feel that we had no need of deepening? That all we had to do was accept and be enrolled, and then we had our degree? I doubt it. The same is true of the cause of God. Oceans of jewels lie before us to be found in this wonderful faith. Every day becomes richer and sweeter and more wonderful as we draw upon this water of life, which is available to everybody, learn it or unlearn it. It is of no value in itself. It's a weakness, not a strength. Ignorance is the absence of knowledge. Yet those who have been deprived of the opportunity to gain knowledge and to have education should not feel saddened, because this gift we are finding in these days of mass teaching, this gift is that they have a pure heart because of their simplicity, their suffering, the deprivation of their lives. They can hear of Baha'u'llah and they can accept him in a flash through the heart and the spirit. Well, there could be no greater gift than that. The whole world has turned a deaf ear to Baha'u'llah's commands for over a century, generally speaking. Kings and rulers and leaders and educators and philosophers. So there's no greater gift that can come to a human being than to hear and to understand, but that's only the beginning. Now that you've heard of him, you have to put that knowledge to work. The knowledge of Baha'u'llah, you have to have a yearning for knowing more. Your pure, sincere heart has opened the door to spiritual education, which can change not only your lives, but the lives of the world through you. Words of the beloved guardian, his thoughts. So that ignorance, you see, proved a blessing, didn't it? But only a temporary blessing. For it must now be replaced by the rich knowledge and learning of the cause of God, which has been opened to you. You see, if these new believers can read, fine. If they can, then the teachers must bring them the pure word and the teachings of Baha'u'llah in oral form. No longer is there any excuse to be deprived of this knowledge and the history of the faith which will inspire and guide and encourage them, as the beloved guardian said. Baha'u'llah, the Blessed Beauty, has told us all that knowledge is dependent upon a knowledge of God and His manifestation. These new believers have that, and it's the beginning, so rejoice over it, and then teach them more and deepen them in the cause of God. They should learn everything they can about His laws, His teachings, His principles, His administrative order, the history of the faith, His commands for our personal life. Otherwise, although they have been invited to the house of God where the banquet of Baha'u'llah is being staged, unless they get in through the door of deepening to know and understand the gift, they will never have the food. That's deepening. And it's a sweet, wonderful, and exciting thing, and we shouldn't deprive ourselves of its wondrous bounty. And we should have just as enthusiastic big mass teaching conferences and big mass deepening conferences, both side by side, for one is not more important than the other, and we must give it that impetus, that excitement. Otherwise, there will always be this great disparity that leads to unhappiness, to sadness, to misunderstanding, and deprives the lovers of God and the lovers of mankind of the healing word of the Blessed Beauty. And that's the last thing I'm going to say about deepening. If you can't pioneer or travel or leave your present job or home, don't worry. You can do something equally as important if you do it on a basis of sacrifice. You can contribute more generously, far more generously, not from the surplus or what's left over, but from what you really need for yourself. In that same spirit of sacrifice has sent that pioneer living alone in some far-off land under the most adverse and difficult of circumstances. Just as the time is short, frighteningly short, for all of us to arise and teach and bring in the masses, it is also alarmingly short for those of us upon whom the burden of contributions and giving rests. For us, too, undoubtedly, there is an appointed time, as Baha'u'llah said, after which it'll be too late. That means the rich, the middle class, and the poor all must sacrifice from their resources, each according to his means, but each without exception, however wealthy or however impoverished, however old a Baha'i or however new a Baha'i. That is the spiritual law of happy, serene living. That's how we conquer the world. Let us hear the words of our beloved guardian on this subject. I'm quoting now from his World Crusade message of July 1954. This challenge, so severe and insistent and yet so glorious, faces no doubt primarily the individual believer, on whom in the last resort depends the fate of the entire community. Without his support, at once wholehearted, continuous, and generous, every measure adopted and every plan formulated by the body which acts as the national representative of the community to which he belongs is foredoomed to failure. The world center of the faith is paralyzed if such a support on the part of the rank and file of the community is denied it. The author of the divine plan himself is impeded in his purpose if the proper instruments for the execution of his design are lacking. And listen to this now. I'm interrupting here, because these are words, the infallible fulfillment of which hangs over each one of our heads. Shoghi Effendi continues. The sustaining strength of Baha'u'llah himself, the founder of the faith, will be withheld from every and each individual who fails in the long run to play his part. End of quotation. What a frightening thought. And this power of heaven, what about that? What about this spiritual force of the supreme concourse that always surrounds us and helps us toward the victories? Shoghi Effendi says, and I'm quoting again, the unseen legions, standing rank upon rank, and eager to pour forth from the kingdom on high the full measure of their celestial strength, are powerless unless and until each potential crusader decides for himself and perseveres in his determination to rush into the arena of service, ready to sacrifice his all for the cause he is called upon to champion. End of quotation. But when he rushes into the arena of service, down comes the power of heaven, and nothing can stand in his path. Even the powers of the earth cannot hold him back from the victory. You know, if the glass of a mirror is turned inward toward our physical bodies and not away from us toward the sun, how can the sunlight ever appear in it and shine on other people? How can the light of Baha'u'llah, the Sun of Truth, touch the hearts of men if they can't see it mirrored in our lives? Now, why is this talk about contributions especially vital to our mission of reaching the masses? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Our beloved guardian tells us that upon the tremendous increase in numbers and a spirit of loving sacrifice on the part of each believer, new and old, depends the entire fate of all the projects still waiting to be established all over the world for the redemption of mankind. Far greater efforts must be made, calling for far greater resources, which can be sustained only, Shoghi Effendi told us, by a far greater number of dedicated followers of Baha'u'llah in every country. This tremendous increase from all walks of life, is the only way we can assure the successful conquest of the planet. Both the numbers and the resources needed to win and preserve the victory and to apply this sole remedy for the ills of mankind. You know, I keep thinking of Persia and America, the cradle of the faith and the cradle of the administrative order, of the capital city of Tehran, mother of the world, and of the cities of America, and the tremendous financial resources still untapped, still locked up in the hearts of the more affluent among the followers of Baha'u'llah. If only there were some way to fire their hearts with such zeal and such love as dyed the sands of Persia red with the blood of the dawnbreakers and their forefathers in that land, and carried the message from America to the four corners of the earth, then you would see the army of God quickly cover the planet. No sacrifice can be deemed too great, I'm quoting Shoghi Effendi now, and no expenditure of material resources, no degree of renunciation of worldly benefits, comfort, and pleasure can be regarded as excessive when we recall the precious blood that flowed, the many lives that were snuffed out, the wealth of material possessions that was plundered during those tumultuous and cataclysmic years of the heroic age of our faith. End of quotation. Those heroic defenders of Fort Sheikh Tabarsi, those martyrs in the public square, the Sabzi Maidan in Tehran, those dawnbreakers, they didn't say, how much of my blood shall I give here? 5%? 10%? Just enough so as I won't really miss it? No. They gave their all, everything, so that we, you and I, could stand here today together and help to hand down the torch of victory to generations as yet unborn. So how about it, Tehran, New York, Shiraz, Los Angeles, Tabriz, Toronto, Mashhad, Montreal, Babul Sar, Miami, Hamadan, San Francisco, Isfahan, Vancouver? What about immortalizing the brief, precious remaining moments of your lives by pouring out unstintingly, while there is yet time, your material resources, without which we can't win the victory, and which, without Baha'u'llah, are meaningless to the owner? These cities alone, mind you, could achieve every single property goal of the entire 9-year plan in one Baha'i month, could finish the Panama Temple, purchase all the national centers, the summer schools. Every single physical goal of the 9-year plan could be won easily by next Rizwan through this sacrifice, even on a humble scale, by these richly endowed believers so materially blessed by Baha'u'llah, founder of their faith. Perhaps they will return to him some of the treasures he has so bountifully bestowed upon them, which they may be saving for the future, a future which may never come without Baha'u'llah's victory during the 9-year plan. Perhaps they will make sacrifices so great that it will, as the beloved guardian implied, astound the entire Baha'i world and change the face of the entire planet, while there is yet time, before those unseen cataclysmic forces of a fast declining civilization make it impossible for them to make such a sacrifice at all. No wonder our beloved guardian wrote these words, that it was imperative for the individual believer, and now I'm quoting his exact words, particularly for the affluent, the independent, the comfort-loving, and those obsessed by material pursuits, to step forward and dedicate their resources, their time, their very lives to a cause of such transcendence that no human eye can even dimly perceive its glory. Let them resolve instantly and unhesitatingly to place, each according to his circumstances, his share on the altar of Baha'i sacrifice, lest on a sudden, unforeseen calamities rob them of a considerable portion of the earthly things they have amassed. End of quotation. That day will come, beloved friends. Who knows? It could be tomorrow, next week, next month. Astonish the world. Immortalize your lives. Sacrifice and live forever in the history of the cause of God and in the hearts of your friends and of your families. Sacrifice now today while there is yet time. Do you think I have forgotten you, the loved, the underprivileged, the poor in India, or the masses in Africa, or you in Latin America, or you in the islands? Never. Perhaps you can do what those in the cradle of the faith, in the cradle of the administrative order, have yet failed to do in the way of noble sacrifice. The contributions from the poor, our beloved guardian, and our universal house of justice tell us, however small, are a mighty river of life when combined together. What is more, the Supreme Concourse takes the money given in such sacrifice and consecrates it. Those resources, however limited, can win glorious victories because the powers of heaven direct them. And so the penny, the peso, the shilling, the rupee, the real, given from the hearts of the poor, can reverse the current of life and help remove the very poverty from which they suffer. Imagine. These small contributions are drops that swell into a river that become the very ocean of life. The nameless and the traceless poor, the beloved Master called you. Yet you, through your sacrifice, can do what even those with bountiful resources have not yet done, if you are truly the heroes and the heroines the blessed beauty Baha'u'llah believed you to be. Imagine the precious, glorious opportunities we have lost in the past. Let us not lose another single hour. We could have changed the world by now. We could have changed the world by now. I think we'd be quite a different people if we'd review these things in our own mind each day, because we are Baha'u'llah's accelerators, not his brakes. In the name of God, is it any wonder that Abdu'l-Baha's reported Mahmud's diary should say while he stood at the rail of the steamship Celtic after leaving the United States, "One must ride in the ship of God, for this life is a stormy sea, and all the peoples of the earth, that is over 2 billion souls, will drown in it before 100 years have passed. All except those who ride in the ship of God. Those will be safe." End of quote. It's a pilgrim's note. You'll find Abdu'l-Baha's words quoted in an article in the Current Baha'i World, page 1187. But are we getting the masses into that ship of God? Are we? Are we really? Isn't it time that those of us who are alive and full of his love today should trumpet out his call to the masses and open Baha'u'llah's ark of salvation to all the suffering multitudes, so they may enter the safety of the ship of God before the winds of the mighty onrushing hurricane drowns out the sounds of our voices, and we can only cry out, "I'm sorry, it's too late." Let us listen to Baha'u'llah's own words, Gleanings, pages 319 through 320. Quoting, "O my friends that dwell upon the dust, he who is the best beloved is come. Let all eyes rejoice, and let every ear be gladdened. Take heed lest ye forfeit so precious a favor. Beware lest ye belittle so remarkable a token of his grace. Night hath succeeded day, and day hath succeeded night, and the hours and moments of your lives have come and gone, and yet none of you hath for one instant consented to detach himself from that which perisheth. Bestir yourselves that the brief moments that are still yours may not be dissipated and lost. Even as the swiftness of lightning your days shall pass, and your bodies shall be laid to rest beneath a canopy of dust. What can ye then achieve? How can ye atone for your past failure?" End of quotation. Now is the time, beloved friends. Arise, bring in the masses. Will we prevent millions and millions of our suffering, unhappy fellow human beings from entering the ship of God because we are silent and don't shout, because we are sitting and don't move? It's nearly 130 years since the faith began. 5 infallible sources of guidance have lighted our path. The Bab, Baha'u'llah, twin messengers of God. Abdu'l-Baha, the mystery of God. Shoghi Effendi, the sign of God on earth. The universal house of justice, source of all good, freed from all error. 2 holy messengers, and this great world-redeeming order. And yet we, after nearly 130 years, have attracted this pitiful handful of the peoples of the earth. I know we can't prevent the faith from conquering the world. We never should be discouraged. It will conquer the world. It's divine, and it cannot fail, the beloved guardian told us. But he said that we, because of our timidity, our complacency, our apathy, our faint-heartedness and neglect, we, the present generation of Baha'is, can fail. Shoghi Effendi told us that. The House of Justice repeated it. in one of their Rizwan messages. Others will take up our tasks administering to the needs of society if we don't arise. We can't stop the victory eventually. We can slow it up, and we can delay it. And undoubtedly, if we do, there is an appointed time for us, the Baha'is, just as relentlessly and remorselessly as Baha'u'llah said there was for all mankind. Others in the future will take up our tasks. Others who will not be of our like and who will take from us the kingdom of God, the most beautiful, tender, fragrant, sweet, and wonderful thing ever given to a people at any time in the history of the world. And we, with the deaf, the blind, the indifferent world around us, will be rolled up with the old world order. And a new, different order of Baha'is will be rolled out in our stead, who will win the victory for the blessed beauty by the purity of their lives, the consecration of their hearts, and the ardor of their service. Is it any wonder the beloved Master would entreat us repeatedly, "Why are ye silent? Shout! Why are ye sitting? Move!" And there's only one way. We must bring in thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of believers into the cause of God. Not tomorrow or next week or next month or next year or surely after Rizwan, but now, right bang on now. Do you agree? Well, beloved friends, I'd like to repeat as I'm coming to the end now those wonderful words of our beloved guardian about our supreme universal house of justice. Wherever I go, I never fail to share these with the friends. They're so important. So we'll know who those men are on the side of that mountain and what is happening there in the mountain of God. And therefore we'll know who we are as the followers of Baha'u'llah. We'll understand unmistakably that source of immediate guidance, power, and majesty that guides us. You know the same love, honor, and service which the hands of the cause of God rendered to our beloved guardian, the sign of God on earth, we now offer unhesitatingly to our supreme universal house of justice, and we are sustained by their love, their kindness, and their guidance. I am paraphrasing the beloved guardian's words. May they be burned into our hearts in letters of gold upon tablets of chrysolite, for the world has never seen their like. The mighty edifice, the universal house of justice, will be erected, raising high its noble frame above the world of existence. The unity of the followers of Baha'u'llah will thus be realized and fulfilled from one end of the earth to the other. And the living waters of everlasting life will stream forth from that fountainhead of God's world order upon all the warring nations and peoples of the world, to wash away the evils and iniquities of the realm of dust, and heal man's age-old ills and ailments. Through it, the universal house of justice, the ardent hopes of the people of Baha will be realized. Through it, the pillars of the faith on this earth will be firmly established, and its hidden powers be revealed, its signs shine forth, its banners be unfurled, and its light shed upon all peoples. Then, with the coming of the universal house of justice, will all our cherished hopes and aspirations be realized. The tree of our endeavors bear fruit, and the hidden powers of the cause of our Lord be fully manifested. And then will be unveiled before our eyes the inauguration of an era, the like of which has never been witnessed in past ages. Well, aren't we lucky? Now that we know even more about the wonder of our supreme universal house of justice from our beloved guardian, let us listen for this last time during this study class, perhaps with spiritual ears for the first time, to the ringing call of the universal house of justice to each one of us to arise and bring in the masses. They also tell us, again, repeatedly, that teaching and consolidation must go hand in hand, and what that really means. So let us listen, really listen this time, to divine infallible guidance, and save ourselves, our committees, our assemblies, hours of fruitless discussion and oceans of tribulations. Ready? I'm quoting. Every individual follower of Baha'u'llah, as well as the institutions of the faith, at local, national, continental, and world levels, must now meet the challenge to raise the intensity of teaching to a pitch never before obtained in order to realize that vast increase called for in the plan. Simultaneous and co-equal with this vast, ordered, and ever-growing teaching effort, the work of consolidation must go hand in hand. In fact, these two processes must be regarded as inseparable parts of the expansion of the faith. While the work of teaching inevitably goes first, to pursue it alone without consolidation would leave the community unprepared to receive the masses, who must sooner or later respond to the life-giving message of the cause. From this vital, this ever-present need, attention must at no time be diverted, nor must it be under any circumstances neglected or subordinated to the no less vital and urgent task of ensuring the outer expansion of the Baha'i administrative institutions. A proper balance between these two essential aspects of its development must, from now on, as we enter the era of large-scale conversion, be maintained by the Baha'i community. Consolidation must comprise not only of the establishment of Baha'i administrative institutions, but a true deepening in the fundamental verities of the cause and in its spiritual principles, understanding of its prime purpose in the establishment of the unity of mankind, instruction in its standards of behavior in all aspects of private and public life, in the particular practice of Baha'i life in such things as daily prayer, education of children, observance of the laws of Baha'i marriage, abstention from politics, the obligation to contribute to the fund, the importance of the 19-day feast, and opportunity to acquire a sound knowledge of the present-day practice of Baha'i administration. Now, it seems, we may well be entering an era of the longed-for expansion of our beloved faith. Mankind's growing hunger for spiritual truth is our opportunity. As humanity plunges deeper into that condition of which Baha'u'llah wrote, to disclose it now would not be meet and seemly, so must the believers increasingly stand out as assured, orientated, and fundamentally happy beings, conforming to a standard which, in direct contrast to the ignoble and amoral attitudes of modern society, is the source of their honor, strength, and maturity. It is this marked contrast between the vigor, unity, and discipline of the Baha'i community on the one hand, and the increasing confusion, despair, and feverish tempo of a doomed society on the other, which, during the turbulent years ahead, will draw the eyes of humanity to the sanctuary of Baha'u'llah's world-redeeming faith. The constant progress of the cause of God is a source of joy to us all, and a stimulus to further action, but not ordinary action. Heroic deeds are now called for, such as are performed only by divinely sustained and detached souls. End of quotation. Are the heroes and heroines here today who will arise to perform those heroic deeds? Has the time at last come? Has it come at last? And finally, beloved friends, these tender words from our beloved guardian, who is always the source of joy and inspiration to the hands of the cause of God. He is the sun, and we are but the moons to his sun, and without him we are less than the dust. We have no light of our own. We take our light from him. We are the remnants of his overshadowing cloak of tenderness and love to all of us. So I'll close with these words of his to each one of us. Now is the time to set aside, nay, to forget altogether, minor considerations regarding our internal relationships, and present a solid, united front to the world, animated by no other desire but to serve and propagate his cause. With hearts cleansed from the least trace of suspicion, and filled with hope and faith in what the spirit of love can achieve, we must one and all endeavor at this moment to forget past impressions, and with absolute goodwill and genuine cooperation unite in deepening and diffusing the spirit of love and service that the cause has thus far so remarkably shown to the world. Let us be on our guard, lest too much concern in that which is secondary in importance, and too long a preoccupation with the details of our affairs and activities, make us neglect the most essential, the most urgent of all our obligations, namely, to bury our cares and teach the cause, delivering far and wide this message of salvation to a sorely stricken world. Let us pray to God that in these days of world-encircling gloom, when the dark forces of nature, of hate, rebellion, anarchy, and reaction are threatening the very stability of human society, when the most precious fruits of civilization are undergoing severe and unparalleled tests, we may all realize, more profoundly than ever, that though but a mere handful amidst the seething masses of the world, we are in this day the chosen instruments of God's grace, that our mission is most urgent and vital to the fate of humanity, and fortified by these sentiments, arise to achieve God's holy purpose for mankind. Goodbye, until we meet again, face to face in some far-off or nearby pioneering post.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to listen to more content on the Oneness Movement, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment. See you next time.